You are not going to grow a property portfolio without something generating cash flow.
How long did it take you to make your first million?
4 months. I have literally estate agents who will come to me on Instagram and say, I've got this deal. Do you want to have a look at it before it even hits Rightmove?
When you went into property, were there any misconceptions that you had? Because as you know, we spoke earlier, sometimes it seems a bit easier than what it actually is. So do you have any other misconceptions, like any shocks when you went into the property industry?
Yeah, all of the good people in property know each other. In property, there's hundreds of thousands of people in property in the UK, but all of the really good ones tend to know each other and work together, and they all tend to throw each other bones under the table and do work with each other. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it does monopolise the market a little bit.
Interesting.
All of the big players all work with each other, and a lot of the I don't want to say it because it sounds bad, but all of the smaller players, they tend to not go as far because they don't have other people opening the door.
Yeah.
Which is why I always say it is unfortunately about who you know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. In one of the projects that we're doing, we're actually speaking to one of the builders, and he said a lot of the big people that you see on social media, the deals that you see on Rightmove, they will probably get them before anybody else sees it.
Yeah, they do.
Because they know the right people.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who are entering the market, they just get kind of what's left that nobody take.
Correct. And you see a lot of people saying now that a lot of people throw shade at sources, and they shouldn't, because they say, oh, sources just keep giving us a load of shit from Rightmove. And sometimes it's because all the good stuff is taken usually by the big names in on social media.
Yeah.
Because people just bring it to us before we get off. I have literally estate agents who will come to me on Instagram and say, I've got this deal. Do you want to have a look at it before it even hits Rightmove?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not even big. I mean, people like Samuel Leeds and some of the other big names. Imagine how many they get.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
How can you expect anyone else to have a chance?
Yeah.
Unless you already know people within that industry, or you've got someone opening a door for you.
Yeah.
So that was a big eye opener for me. It's more about who. I know I say a big eye opener. It's obvious, isn't it? But it is more about who you know.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I definitely agree, because I think sometimes people forget that. I always say property is not about property. Property is about people, and the more people you know, the easier it is.
Exactly.
And I think for me, that's why social media is so pivotal in the time that we're in. So let's talk about the different strategies in property. You know, a lot of people, when they want to get into property, the main strategies that everybody wants to go into is deal sourcing or rent to rent. What's your view on deal sourcing, rent to rent? What's your view on those strategies?
I think they're amazing if it's done correct.
Okay.
You've got, at the end of the day, a customer only gives a shit about one thing.
Yeah.
And is that, well, two things. Can they trust you with their money, and are you going to make them money? That's it. That's it. Are you going to do something which is going to generate them more income, or can they trust you? That's it. But there's a lot of people at the moment with a bad reputation.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, because there's so many people who just want to get, and this may be at the fault of quite a lot of influencers.
Yeah.
Because they're making it sound a little bit too easy at times. Therefore, you get these like young lads who want to come in and do deal packaging because they want to earn 2, 3, 4 grand here and there every deal package, and because they don't want to put in the real work, like how much effort it actually takes to find a direct to vendor property. Instead, they'll find some piece of shit on Rightmove, like people say, and it will give them a bad name and a bit of a bad rep.
Yeah.
And then it's the same with contractors in my industry as well. Yeah. Contractors give themselves a terrible name because they'll say they're going to do something and then they don't show up, or they don't get it done on time, or they'll overcharge. They'll pull numbers out of fucking thin air, and they'll just give prices based on absolutely no like actual data. They'll just say, yeah, it's about 5 grand that, and they'll try and rob you blind.
Yeah.
So it's with deal packaging as well. I think they're amazing. It's just you've got to be careful.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful with, are you trustworthy?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm struggling to find investors. But the reality is, you know yourself, you only need probably about 4 or 5 good investors.
True.
You need a handful at best who are just repeat customers.
Yeah.
And if you can just create a really good service for your handful of people, that will make you so much more money than you can actually imagine by thinking that you need 500 investors or to constantly going crazy, and people want to take on too much. Yeah. And they'll get themselves into a bit of a hole where you've took on you've overpromised and underdelivered. Yeah. Yeah. As they say.
Okay, that's interesting. So where you're at now, what are the businesses that you mainly do? Let's talk about the properties that you have. So the properties that you have, and what is it that you mainly do and specialize in right now?
God, what I'm mainly doing, what I want to do, are completely different things.
Okay.
So what I mainly do
Yeah.
is, if you look on our numbers
Okay.
on paper,
Yeah.
it looks like we make the most money from refurbishments.
Okay.
Now, we do, but the biggest margins for us is property maintenance.
Okay.
And that's just because every van can generate up to 17,000 a van, but the actual cost of the van is around $3,500 a month. That includes the tradesman's labour.
Okay.
And then you've got materials, and then the average margin per van can be between 35 and 45%.
Okay. So let's talk about the property maintenance business.
Yeah.
How much does that generate you a year?
Oh God, we haven't even been going a full. We took our full first sale ever of the company on the 17th of April 23.
Okay, so per month, how much has it been generating your month in property maintenance business?
Maintenance, you're looking at about 85, 90.
85, 90K a month?
Yeah, correct.
And your property refurb business, how much is that generating your month?
About 400.
400?
So last month, for example, we had an average month of 110K a week. The highest one we had was 155.
£155,000 a week.
No, but that was once.
Yeah,
That's just
okay.
once. Yeah.
But even if it's £100,000 a week,
And that's not profit, just to clarify.
yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
still, the business generates that amount. So £100,000 a week, that's how much your business generates. What made you even decide to go into property refurb? Because again, a lot of people come into property, they want to either do deal sourcing, rent to rent, just BRRs. What made you actually want to do property refurb? Because a lot of people don't actually focus on that.
So when I mentioned earlier about I didn't know how I was going to pay for the refurbishment on our first house, it was because I had a friend in the area who did maintenance. So what he did was he said, well, do you know how much money we make from maintenance if we did it ourselves? And I was like, okay, right, fine. So I started calling all of the local lettings agents saying, look, I've got a fleet of vehicles. I didn't. I was like, I've got a fleet of vehicles. We can do your property maintenance for you. So he then started doing property maintenance for me in the evenings after he was doing work for his other property maintenance company. Wow. In their company van, he was doing it for me in the evenings after work. I was then using the invoices that we were charging the customers to then pay him to do the refurbishments on our own house.
Wow.
Then we got to a heavy point in the refurb, like the kitchen, where we were struggling to afford it. So then what I did is I found a guy on Facebook who needed a 4-bed, a 4-ensuite HMO.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I've got a team. I've just finished a project. I didn't at all. I said, I've got a team. We're just finishing a project. What quotes have you had for your refurb? And we'll be able to price match and we'll be able to jump in quicker because I've got a spare team of people that can jump in.
Wow.
And so he gave me the quote. And I said, okay, right, we'll beat it. And I think it was like 43 grand I quoted him at the time, which is quite cheap.
Yeah.
For a HMO, that can be cheap anyway.
Yeah.
And I said, right, I want a 10% deposit up front for a retention because I needed to find a way to get my guy a van so then he could then work for me full time doing this guy's refurbishment and the property maintenance.
Wow.
And then what I did was I took that and purchased got a business lease on a van.
Okay.
We then got our first ever van. He started working for me, my friend, who now still works for me to this day.
Okay.
And I then went back to the customer and I said, just for like transparency, I was like, we don't usually do another customer's job unless you pay like a big retention up front, not 10%.
Okay.
But as in like to pay for the phase.
Okay.
And I did this because we'd run out of money for our own property refurbishment.
Wow.
So he paid us another 50% of the entire build up front in cash into our own bank.
Wow.
So I used that money to then go finish the refurbishment on my house. I then refinanced my house to then put it back.
See, this is...
That's just being resourceful.
It's
the wrong thing to do, by the way.
Of course.
But
of course.
just,
Because your numbers have to be really tight. And I assume you've probably... Even though how you said it, it made it seem quite easy. I assume that at the time, it definitely wasn't.
Oh no, it was a constant, like, twitching moment, put it that way.
I can imagine.
But coupled with education, I knew that I could refinance my property and put the money back. I didn't just do it hoping that there was enough money there for me to refinance. And I'd done my due diligence and I knew how much my property was going to be worth at the end, about.
Yeah.
So I knew that I could finish it, put the money back, and then the customer would know nothing. That's just proper money management.
Wow.
I'd never do that again.
Yeah.
But at the time, when it was just getting going, that's then what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And then that's what got the whole refurbishment company started. Wow. I did not start a refurb company because I knew anything about building. I know nothing about building. I still don't.
Yeah.
It's literally just a way of being resourceful.
100%.
And now it's because loads of people now just keep going, do you want to come do our refurb? Do you want to do our refurb?
Exactly.
Do our refurb with maintenance.
And I think that's important, because I think a lot of people have the misconception that they need to know everything, but the truth is you really don't.
You don't need to
You
know
just
nothing.
Need to be around people who know
just
what
people.
they're doing. Exactly.
And for now, I live my entire life by, if I do not know the answer, then who do I know who knows that answer?
Yeah.
And if I don't know anyone who knows the answer, funnily enough, I'll just go Google it.
Yeah.
I'll literally just go Google it, and then I'll try and find people who do, and then I'll try and find a way to contact them, or I'll contact someone within their vicinity who can get me the answer. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's people overthink it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be something that you love either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like doing building work.
Oh, really?
No, it's not a passion. I don't want to own it. I don't care about being a contractor or anything like that. No.
Yeah.
I just enjoy making money.
Yeah.
Which I can then, in property, as you know, you are not going to grow a property portfolio without something generating cash flow.
Yeah.
You need cash flow or unless you're an absolute beast at raising finance.
Yeah.
But you need something that generates cash flow.
Yeah.
And for me, that is just that now.
Yeah.
That's my cash flow beast.
Yeah.
Which then I leverage to then increase my own wealth by buying my own assets.
Yeah. You see, what's interesting is that in that industry, because one of my close friends, he actually is in that industry as well. As much as you can make money, you can also lose a lot of money. What's the most amount of money that you've lost?
39 grand on one refurbishment, because I didn't know what I was doing and I threw a price at a customer, and I thought that was enough to get the job done. And because in the contract I said we would cover, we'll cover it.
Yeah.
And we ended up losing, I think it was 38 or 39 grand on that one refurb.
Wow.
And then it took me a long time to get it back. It's not a long time. It's took me a few months to get it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably the most I've lost on one project.
Wow. So from when you left I know you said you technically left in March or April, but from the time that you first started in property to where you are now, how long's that been? Was it 2 years, is it?
About 2.5 years, yeah. So we purchased the first ever house when we actually started. That was before we started doing any like trading.
Yes.
That was November 22. So
okay, November 2022. So how long did it take you to make your first million?
Oh God. So April was the first time we took. 17th of April 23 was the first sale. 4 months.
It took you 4 months to make your first million?
Yeah, but that was because I've got a big contract as well. I mean,
wow.
So I got big refurbishment contracts coming in, yeah. And then now, this year, we're on track to hit 6.
Wow.
And then we've got a contract with the one I was telling you about earlier, guy that we met at the Excel.
Yeah.
That's going to make us 17.5, that contract.
17.5 million?
Yeah, correct. And that's going to be over 3 years. So,
wow. So
that's from one customer. That's not including any maintenance. That's not including other refurbishments. That's not including anything we make for ourselves.
So from one person, one customer, you're going to make 17.5 million?
Over 3 years, yeah.
Wow. How did you meet that person?
Literally walking around the Excel for the property investor show. They had a stand there. I walked up to them and said, "What do you do?" They told me what they did. I told them what I did. They said, "Let's sit down and have a coffee." Within like a week.
Yeah.
Do you want to partner with us? Yep. Straight done.
Wow.
That's literally, that was, and I know that sounds, that is literally all it was.
Wow.
There was nothing fancy.
Yeah.
That was just that's the importance of going and getting out and networking and talking to people.
It's so true. So, and I feel like a lot of people, maybe because I guess they're in their comfort zone, you don't want to go out and meet people, but you went to an event in Excel, which a lot of people had access to, because I think it was free.
It's free.
It was a free event, but you decided to take action, go speak to someone, and through that one person, 17.5 million is going to be generated.
Yep.
You know, so that's interesting. Would you say that's one of the biggest lessons that you learned, or what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
I've got there's two. It's social media is so important, and no matter how much you hate it, I despise it. However, even if you don't want to use social media to sell something, it is just an amazing tool to have if you're continuously documenting your journey as a trust building exercise for people. Because if people can look at your social media, and now that is all people do, they will look at your social media. If they can see that you are doing what you say you are doing, that is everything.
Yeah.
Like, so the customer that I'm on about, the £70.5 million contract, one of the first things they did is they added me on social media.
Oh, wow.
And it helped massively. That's number one. And then number two is the whole networking side of things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you have to network with the right people, not just everyone.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a really big property sourcer, just going to these events where it's just you and a lot of other sources trying to find investors probably ain't going to get you that far.
100%.
You have to go to places, think outside the box a little bit, where there's proper business professionals there. Whether if you want to source for people like doctors, other solicitors, bankers, VC guys, people who are cash rich but time poor. You have to get out and network. And social media is a massive part of that, but you do also have to put a face to it 100%. Because people just don't like. One of the big things that I say that a lot of the social medias have now is like Jamie York, for example. They document their entire life, so you already feel like you know them before you have ever even met them. Whereas Joe down the street with 200 followers is not going to get that anytime soon. So they do have to be going out to these actual networking events and meeting people. Because a lot of these gurus like to turn around and say, oh, be on social media because your video will get, if it gets 10,000 views, that's 10,000 people that you're not going to have done that if you went to an event. It's like, yes, that's true, but not everyone is in a position where their videos are going to be viewed by that many people. There is an element of where you have to go and physically see people and get to these events, like what we met at.
Of course. So what would you say is the best place, in your opinion, to meet cash-rich investors?
Private clubs in like Mayfair. I like you've got a lot. This is so many people will say that these ones are shit. Like you've got like Isabel's. You've got some of the rich nightclubs like Taboo, Rain, and Maddox. If you've ever heard of some of these, then you know these people. Some of these people though, that a lot of them are young people. If you're networking with these type of people. Or the best gyms as well within your area, that's another one. But networking with completely different people that are, no offence, not the friends that you grew up with that don't have the same mindset as you. Then people have to be dropped. But anywhere in like Mayfair, you're going to get loads of different types of every industry, art clubs. You've got the Arts Club, for example. You've got Homegrown. That's another private club in Mayfair. Change the restaurant that you go to. Have a couple of fancy meals out in like Novikov or Bacchanalia or something. You know, just whatever.
That's interesting. So, you know, when you speak about where you find these quote unquote rich investors, you sound very intentional, and I think it's important. It being intentional in terms of how you go about things. Were you always like this?
Yes.
Okay.
But, this sounds bad, but I do not do anything unless I think it's worth my time, and I mean that with anything, even if it's like friends. If my friend circle is incredibly small, but by choice. If I do not think it's going to be worth my time, I am not. Like, if one of my friends now just said, "Do you want to go to the pub?" Why? No, it is a waste of time. What's the intention behind it? If you're saying because we want to have a talk about business, yes, let's go. Like everything, it has to have an intention. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time. It's like you know Tyler. We go to the. He's like, "Do you want to go to the gym?" It's because the intention is it keeps me on my toes. He's another motivating person. You know, there's always an intention.
So you like to surround yourself with other people who are doing well,
or better than me.
Okay, interesting. Why?
Well, because if you're the smartest person in the room, then how do you learn? I always want to be the stupidest person in the room because then I'm learning something. Why would I want to be the smartest person there? Because then everyone's just taking information from me rather than vice versa. I want to have people around me that make me challenge my thoughts or beliefs or highlight where I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, then I'm like, great, so what do I do now to change it? So, yes, I always want to be in an environment where I can learn from other people or keep me motivated because, like I said earlier, because of my childhood, I get complacent and bored very quickly. I sometimes do need things to give me that little kick in the arse. If I have on a weekend, if I don't have any work to do, I am so bored. I borderline sit there depressed. And I'm just sat there in my room like, what do I do? I need to. So it's just keeping me on my toes.